Hello. In this video, we're going to look at the solution for challenge 3, which is to add the Roomba enemy into our game. So I'm going to start with atlas.json. I want my sprite data to be defined first before I try to load it into my game, because otherwise it's going to cause an error. And it's okay to get errors, those are helpful, but I'm going to start from this direction. So it's probably a lot like Hero, feels like it's got animations and stuff going on in here. So I'm going to go with what I have for Hero. So I'm going to start with at line 2 here. I'm going to copy and paste this so I have a template to work with. So take all the stuff for Hero, and it goes down to line 23. So right before Ogre starts, that's the end of Hero here. So I'm going to copy that, and then I can just paste it immediately after. So notice how I have this closing curly brace and the comma before Ogre starts. And then I also, before my new hero wants me to rename it, then I also have that closing curly brace and comma before this comes up here. So I'm going to right now rename this to Roomba. I'm giving it a name, so notice the lowercase letter there. And just to point out, like, where's this curly brace even coming from? It's a little bit hard to see, so that's from hero. So the thing that is called hero is this whole object. And so all these keys and values for the properties are inside of this object, and that's what hero is. Hero is the key. The colon shows you what's the data that's inside a hero. Well, this whole object, which just keeps going and keeps going with more data inside of it. All right, so Roomba. How can we get that in there? All right, now it would at least work. I could load it in. It's just that it would look exactly like my player because it's getting it from the same position. So let's try to figure out, where is this little Roomba guy over here. All right, so what I notice, you could try to measure it, and it's a little bit of trial and error, but I notice that it's to the right of the chest. So I think that's going to help me figure out kind of where to start. So I'm going to see, where did chest start from? All right, so chest has an X position of 304. And it's interesting that it has a Y position of 304 as well. So that's where the left side of chest is. And then it has a width of 48. So those chests end at 304 plus 48. So they end at 352. So that's at least getting me to this spot here. I'm going to guess that this white gap is 16 pixels, just because that's kind of been the standard for all the other spacings in here. So I'm going to guess then that all these animations here start at, what I say, 352 plus 16, so 368. So I'm going to give that a try for the Roomba. How about X being at 368? And then the Y for that chest was 304. Now I know I'm not in the right place. I just kind of want to see where I'm at. All right, now we look at some of these other properties here too. The width property. Each one of these is, I'm thinking, 16 pixels wide. Isn't that what the player was? I think they've all followed a pretty standard, being 16 pixels wide. Now this is the total width. So all the way from here to the end of it, that's what we're trying to figure out. So I want to know, how many frames do I have? So each of these little images here, those are called frames. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 frames. So if I'm guessing that they're 16 pixels, 8 times 16 would be 80 plus 6 times 8. So 80 plus, let's see, am I doing that right? Yeah, I'm doing that right. Be 48. Yeah, 48. So 80 plus 48. So 128. Okay, that makes sense. All right, the height. The players really had a height of that? Probably from their entire sprite. Yeah, we'll see. All right, but then I only counted 8 frames. So my slice X is actually going to be 8. And then my animations that I have here, I think it's really just going to have the one animation. He's just going to like constantly run. So actually, I'm just going to delete the whole idle animation here. So in my anims, my animations, I have this object. Idle is an object that starts here and ends here. I'm just going to delete it, honestly. Um, and then so I run goes from 0 to 7 at a speed of 10. Sure, sounds good. And loop true. All right, now it's a little tricky to actually figure this out, and you can just play with it. But if I have 8 frames, I'm going to start with the 0th frame, with like the very beginning, and then go until the end. With these, we always start counting from 0. Um, it's kind of built into an array, and that's the first index number of the arrays. So I think you might get an error that would lead you in this direction, that it needs to be 7, 0, and 7. Because think if you start counting from 0, 7 is going to be your last number. So we can use that there. All right, so I'm going to delete this. It probably won't hurt anything, but it's trying to define like a hit animation. I'm really just going to have the run animation in here. Okay, so I think that's going to work there. So now I've defined what Roomba means. I think I still need to shift it a little bit. So go into sketch.js here, and decide where do I want to put it. And I also need to define it in the level config. So I'm going to take everything I did with W. So W is this arrow function that returns a list inside of the square brackets. So I'm just going to paste it. And then I added a new element here, so comma, to separate this list of things. And then let's say R. R stands for Roomba. All right, so R is going to make a thing with the tag of Roomba. Use the sprite Roomba. Definitely needs to have an area, and sure, we can make it solid. So then in the level configuration here, let me find the place. So I'll pick one of these empty spaces here with nothing and replace it with an R. So if I just look at it, I'm supposed to have a Roomba then above one of my wall pieces, above one of my floor pieces here. So I should be able to run this and see what kind of interesting errors I get possibly. All right, now one thing, I am zoomed in pretty far, so I'm going to go change the scale from 3 back to 1, just so I can see everything a lot quicker. All right, so I do get, I got a player showing up there. It kind of looks like I'm in the right place. I think I'm a little bit too far up, but looks like I'm almost in the right place. All right, so good. Got him showing up. So that does seem to be this like fishbone character. I do want the one that's a little bit lower than that. Um, so we could try to do, if the height was 28, so I go back to the atlas because I want to change that X and Y position. So if the height really is 28, then maybe the Y position needs to be 28 larger. So that'd be 312 plus another 20, so it'd be 332. All right, yeah, I think I got that guy that I was going for. Might still be a little too high up, we'll have to see. So I'm not sure I'm seeing the feet. But I do have a thought on that too. All right, so I'm gonna go with these numbers for now. So go back to sketch.js. I'm gonna do the kind of the same thing that I did with the player. On the player, I did set the origin to bottom, and that kind of feels right for the enemy as well. I want him to walk on his feet. So I'm going to set the, for R, it's a tag Roomba, sprite Roomba, area solid, comma, origin, parens, quotes, bot, which stands for bottom, just like I did for the player. Sprite not found Roomba. That's interesting that it just all of a sudden had an error. Oh, okay, there it is. Yep, so I think I got my whole sprite loaded in. It is going to make it, yeah, maybe that last piece isn't what I wanted. That I don't want his origin to be at the bottom. Yeah, I want him to be in kind of the same positioning. All right. And now that we have the player in, we want to make their animation start. So that's something that happens inside of the game. So just like I did player.play idle, I would like to say roomba.play run. The only thing is there is no variable called roomba. I never said const roomba equals. So I can't exactly do that, but I can. Maybe the action, might help a little bit. Or we could look in Kaboom. I think it will be the any or every. Yeah, so we can run it on everything. We can run the every function, then takes in a tag called Roomba. So grab everything that is a Roomba, comma, and then arrow function. Arrow, curly braces. So in these functions here, I want to grab each of the Roomba. Now I only have one right now, but grab each of them called R. And now I have a variable. So your variables come from two places, either when you say const or let or var, or inside of these parentheses right here as the parameters. So now I actually do have a variable called R. So I can say R dot play quotes or parens quotes run. Should have a run animation. All right, there it is. All right, so it's doing its little run animation.